Welcome everybody to Alaska Photographic Center's September Artist Talk with Mariano Gonzales. Um, Before I introduce Mariano, I'm going to give a couple of quick announcements for APC. I just wanted to let everybody know that Rarefied Light 2024 will open at Alaska Pacific University on November 1st, which is a Friday, and it's going to be in both galleries, Grant Hall and ConocoPhillips Gallery, and the opening is from 4:30 to 5:30. That seems like a really short time to have an opening. Is that correct, Petra? 4:30 to 5:30? That's what Bonnie told me.
It is, and there's a
Okay.
reason for it. So,
Oh, we don't have
okay,
to go into it.
no, no,
Just wanted to make sure it was correct. But
okay, it is, yeah.
there's a lot of great work in the show, and hope to see people there to see it and see the artists there at the opening. APC is partnering up with Akela Space, the guys who run Akela Space, and also UAA Camera Club to host a photo walk, a photo like a basically a guide, not really a guided tour. It's just a photo walk, just an excuse to get together and shoot pictures together around campus. And so that's going to take place on October 12th, and starting at UAA in the photo lab. And there will be options to shoot in the studio there in our lighting studio, or walk around the trails around campus, make photos, make new friends. No pressure, no judgment, just going out and having fun. I noticed Aquila Space had just posted to Instagram a flyer, a digital flyer on that, and I shared it on Camera Club, UAA Camera Club. So we'll probably you'll probably see some more media on that as it gets closer. But anyway, I'm here to introduce Mariano Gonzales. He's a longtime Anchorage-based artist and also recently retired UAA art professor. Mariano's had 4 museum solo shows, the most recent in 2015. He just had a show at the International Gallery of Contemporary Art in August, which I'm sure he'll talk something about. He probably a lot of you already know him. He's a master of many media in art, including photography, sculpture, jewelry, metal, printmaking, drawing, painting, and now ceramics. Soon to be a master of ceramics. But yeah, so without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mariano. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you all for being here, and thank you for the invitation. Let me do a screen share here, and so I can show you some stuff. Let's see. Okay, I think that's it. All righty. All right. The title of my presentation is Photography at the Center of Creativity, or more specifically, photography at the center of my creativity. When we express our creativity visually, we start with our eyes and immediately shape the idea through our senses and intellect, combined, of course, with the appropriate media. Then our creations then are channeled through the eyes of others and ultimately understood through their senses and or intellect. Famous photographers that intrigued me, early on, when I started, kind of looking into photography. Well, I mean, I saw all of them, right? But my favorites were Elliot Erwitt and Diane Arbus. And I was especially fond of their off-the-wall images that, resonated with my own weird tastes. Let me show you a few Elliot Erwitts and Diane Arbus's. Okay, these are Elliot Erwitts. You know, it's like I said, it's kind of like weirdo stuff. Here's this fine little puppy and a nice lady with boots and then a big old dog. And
Mariano, we're not seeing your images. We just see your Finder on your computer.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so
maybe you've got to unshare your screen and then share your whole desktop. That might work. I'm
okay,
not sure which window you're choosing to
okay,
share.
okay. Well, all right. So let me stop the share and let me do this and let me share again. This time the desktop. Okay.
Okay.
Can you see the photo now?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we see it now.
All right. Excellent. So anyway, Elliot Erwitt stuff was just, kind of weird, for the most part, and kind of off the beaten path. It wasn't pictures of beautiful flowers or mountains or whatever. It was just, you know, crazy stuff. Like here's another shot of a little boy behind a cracked glass and his eyes aligned with the crack. It's uh as an image itself, it kind of infers a lot of things, of course, depending on who you are and you know, what your, I guess your recollections are. But it's a very interesting photograph. I mean, how many people would think to do something like this, and then, uh, so let me close that. I need to move some stuff around here. Okay. I'll get the hang of it here shortly, kids. Relax. Here's another one with a mirror, a couple, in a rear view mirror, in front of a nice ocean scene, it's a little different and, it evokes a lot of, different emotions. Here's some gallery owners. They're looking at the Maya nude and the Maya clothes by Spanish painter. I forget his name. Anyway, so the Maya nude is, a bunch of dudes are standing in front of it, right? But the Maya clothes, the lady is standing, a nice prim lady standing in front of it, and it just tells a very kind of interesting but weird kind of story, which is kind of what I'm into personally. Here's an interesting shot. There's a guy standing there with a dog over the top of his head, and then another dog next to him, and yeah, weird but fascinating for someone like me, of course. And then he does, he's done some, fairly straightforward landscapes with in this one is, the clouds. He's focusing on those massive clouds, and it's it kind of looks like an elephant's head, but still it's I don't know, it just evokes a lot of emotions in me. I can't really say specifically what they are, but it's great, and it kind of resonates with me. There's a nice picture of a kitty, on a couch and on a pillow with kitty heads. That's that's something that really resonates with me because we have like 15 cats, and our place smells like hell. But I like the image. Now here's a couple, black soldiers, and one has glasses reflecting somebody standing at a beach. It looks like a photographer, actually, and very straightforward. And finally, this photograph. And my father was in the military service in the state of Alaska, and periodically they send him out down south, for school, for training camps, and he'd take his family with him. And one time we went to Georgia. This was back in the 60s. And one day I saw the drinking fountains just like this, white and colored. And I didn't know which one I should drink out of, because, I ain't white, but I am sort of colored, Um, but in the South, if you're Hispanic and not that dark, then of course you can drink at the white fountain. Things were a little bit different in Alaska back in those days. But when I saw this picture of Elliot Erwitz, it just reminded me of that image that I saw, back when I was just a child. And the composition itself, it's not straight up and down, horizontal, vertical, but it's kind of all askewed, and which I think kind of says a lot about, about the culture in America at that time. Then there's Diane Arbus. I have just a few to show you. And she liked to do a lot of kind of really strange types of photographs. She's a little girl with a witch mask holding a doll, and her legs seem to be kind of dirty or scuffed. And it's kind of scary, kind of yucky, kind of icky, but still, it's a child, right? So you've got these emotions sort of conflicting with each other, which I think makes the photograph very interesting, to me anyway. And here's some older ladies wearing masks. I'm not sure what the event is, but the masks are pretty weird, especially this one in the back with it looks like I don't know, it looks like a parking meter or something, but Arbus's work, like Erwitz, is just really fascinating to me, just because of the weirdness of the stuff that she chose to photograph. Here's one of my all-time favorites. Lady sitting there on her couch with a baby monkey, and that expression on her face is just precious. And I also like the paneling on the wall, because it reminds me of some of the first houses I lived in Alaska. It had that kind of paneling. It was just, I don't know, bizarre. And then this is one of my most favorite of Diane Arbus's. This little kid holding a hand grenade. And, I mean, he's probably not absolutely normal. He's just kind of really strange, but he's holding this hand grenade. And, it's a great image. And every time I go to the Alaska State Fair, I go to this coffee stand, and on the side of the coffee stand is this sign: "I want my coffee." And it's that image of that kid with a hand grenade, and then a list. And that always kind of fascinated me. Every time I go to the fair, I always make sure to swing over by that coffee stand and look at that thing again and wonder, yes, amazing. So those were, two of my main influences. I liked a lot of other photographers as well, but those two, are the ones that just kind of keep coming back. And so my own photographs early on kind of reflected those kind of ideas. Now, my wife and I were sleeping on the couch, and this was back in the 80s, when they were starting to change TV, where it wasn't all broadcast, there was all digital. And I woke up, and there was this fireplace sitting there on my TV. Just that's all it was, just a fireplace with a fire crackling. And I thought, weird. And I thought, well, I think I'm going to go to the ice box and get a weenie and have my wife hold it, with a fork over the flame. And this is a double exposure. This was shot on negative film. And so, now that's my idea of photography, kids. I know I'm full of shit, but so what? I'm an artist. All artists are full of shit. Well, okay, never forget I said that. So I thought, yeah, this worked out pretty good. I liked it. And again, it was it had to be a double exposure. I was really experimenting a lot when I was starting to take photographs I didn't want to do things straight, just the same old way. I was always kind of pushing the edge. And then one morning, came out on my back porch and we had this paper mache cat that my wife and I bought in Juarez, and I put it on the railing. And then a red kitty came up, and I had a medium format camera in hand, and I was just kind of playing with it, and all of a sudden she made this pose, and so I took a picture real quick, and it came out kind of nice. I've actually sold a few of these, and but I mean, it's kind of like that Elliot Erwitt approach, and things just kind of happen, and you've got your finger on the shutter button, and you go for it. This one's called Red Pears. Now, I was teaching a painting class over UAA, and I wanted to do a demo. I wanted to demonstrate painting with acrylic with very, very thin layers of color and kind of building it up. So I set myself up a still life of 2 pairs on this plate and on this tablecloth. And then I did a series of slides that I showed to my students to demonstrate kind of the approach, the technique. But after I was done with that, I decided to put the demo painting on a table with the cloth and the pears, which were by now, kind of rotten. And so I took a picture of the picture and the pears itself. And I thought it came out kind of cool because it's a combination of painting and photography. Now, I was visiting Isleta, Texas, which is on the outskirts of El Paso, where I was born. And I happened to see this old filling station, and on the wall was the Virgin Mary painted huge. And at that time, there was a guy with his black Mustang kind of, trying to, do something. I don't know, something, he's trying to fix his car. I don't know what. So I thought, this is a great shot. This is definitely an Elliot Erwitt kind of shot, the Virgin Mary, kind of looking over his shoulder while he tries to fix his car. I titled this picture "Ayúdame," which is Spanish for help me. And yeah, my relatives liked it. I was fascinated with photographing petroglyphs when I'd visit the Southwest many times and go to places where there's petroglyphs. But one place that I went to, Canyon de Chelly, the sand on the ground was this red sand, and there was all these footprints of people, traveling through this path. And I thought, wow, that looks like a really great, it looks like it might be some kind of a petroglyph, I love the patterns and all that kind of stuff. So I took some pictures of that, and also like the little tiny white flecks, the little tiny white rocks and pieces of stick in that. Yeah, I like it. I don't know about the rest of you, but I like it. I think it's cool. Yeah, this is a somewhat recent shot. This was a couple of summers ago, actually. It was I have a light behind my house, shining across the field behind my house, and I set up a tripod and I stood there and took a picture of me, with the light from the house, and then the moon was hidden between the behind the clouds rather, and the trees were slightly lit. And I named this picture "Outstanding in My Field." You get it?
Yeah.
Outstanding in my field. Okay. All right.
Uh,
So anyway, as I said, a lot of the photographs that I tend to take that are just kind of like straight photographs are inspired by, Arbus and Irwit, especially just because of the kind of strange approach to photography. But while I was working with photography, I I I I was I, I was doing color photography mainly, mostly with negatives and sometimes with transparencies. And I built my own darkroom and I processed all my, uh, my own color prints in my darkroom. But I used a black and white enlarger, and I used a tricolor method of making color prints. And what the tricolor method is you use three filters, red, green, and blue, and you expose the negative three different times um, through the red, through the green, and through the blue filter onto the paper. And then that would give you a full color print, from basically a black and white enlarger. And I found that I could control the color balance, real well. And um, using another a color enlarger, it's kind of a nuisance. Um, I know because I taught color photography at the UAA for a while, and we used uh, you know um, you know straight enlargers. But in my own studio, I used tricolor. And then I thought, well, with this tricolor method, why couldn't I make my own negatives, And the negatives would be actually three negatives, black and white on some kind of material. So like on this one here, which I called a cliché there, I used three sheets of acetate and a grease pencil. And first I drew a matrix, and then with the grease pencil, I just randomly made shapes, and tonalities. And then I would print it with tricolor, and I would try different filters with the different layers until I found something that came out just the way I wanted it, And so that's what this is. It's actually a color print, but the negative was totally handmade with you know, clear substrate and some kind of a black marker. This was the same thing again, and in this case though, instead of using a black grease pencil, I used a black spray paint and stencils on three different sheets of acetate. And then again, I would print it a few different ways, shifting the filters around, the red, green, and blue filters, until I got something that looked good. And sometimes it didn't look especially good, but I knew that if I wanted to intensify a certain color or change the color, shift, I would simply add a little bit more black to the substrate, to the film. And so in a way, it's definitely a photographic process, but it's also combined thoroughly, with drawing or painting, with black and white. These prints have been shown outside, several different places, and um, I still have the negatives, but I don't do my own color printing anymore. Here's another version, but in this case, I used a negative of two little skeletons that I got in Japan, but I just took a photograph. And then I used, again, well, on the outside here, I used tracing paper, and I used um, Conti crayon, for the outside. And then the inside, uh, I used kind of an interference filter, as it were, uh, over the top of the negative. And so it gave me, this crazy pixelation kind of effect. And I thought it worked out pretty cool. Now, when I was doing this kind of stuff and trying to show it here in Alaska, uh, nobody knew what the hell it was. And nobody seemed to be very interested in it. Um, of course, that doesn't bother me. It's uh, uh, I kept doing it anyway. But over the years, people seem to be understanding it just a little bit more. And that. So I did this one in 1984. And again, I'm combining photography with another medium. In this case, I'm hand making the negatives, but with kind of a random sort of approach. Now, these three are called kind of crystalline. And again, it's another handmade negative with areas cut out. And again, I printed it different ways, with the different filters. And so this is one version. Here's another version. It's exactly the same, but with printed through shifting the filters around. And here's yet another version. This one's my favorite. I don't know why. And again, it's a photographic process. It's on photo paper, for negative paper, and it's got this nice kind of grain and then certain areas where there was just an open spot in the negatives, there's no grain at all. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Never sold any of these, but oh well. I'm not on this planet to sell stuff. At least I wasn't. Nowadays, I guess I'm a little more conscious of it. I was also fascinated with doing panoramics. And hold on, let me change that. Okay. So this panoramic was shot with a 35 millimeter camera, on negative film. And we had stayed the night in a Native American hostel in Arizona. And the next day we were driving out, and I saw this little booth, abandoned booth by the highway. So I got out with my camera, and I think it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's about 9 separate shots. And then when I got back to my studio in Alaska, I digitized all the negatives, or sorry, were they slides or negatives? Whatever they were, I digitized it. And then I put it together in Photoshop and, did a lot of cleaning up and correcting. And, so there it is. And again, what I'm doing is I'm using photography, but not in a straight photographic way. It's kind of at the root of, my experimentation. On this one, we were driving to Dawson City, and there was a dredge, the Jack Wade dredge, out in the wilderness. And so I walked in there. There were signs all over it saying, "Do not, do not enter, but I did. And there was this nice stairwell going down, and then there's the machinery going this way. So this is another panoramic, a vertical one, and this was like only about 4 shots. And I thought it came out pretty cool, kind of different. I mean, it works with my taste. I mean, what the heck, This is another panoramic in Skagway. It was early morning. People were having breakfast, and mostly old geezers, like I am now. And and this is about this again. This was all slides, and it was about 8 different shots. And it was interesting because when I got over to this point right here, there's this old guy looking at me, and being a brown boy, they probably thought I was some kind of an Arab or something, taking notes to conquer the place. But I didn't care. I just did my thing and I went back. So when you're doing panoramics, you do get a lot of kind of distortion from shot to shot. So with Photoshop, you can correct all that, and I learned how to do that, and it was a challenge, and it was fun. Everything I do is fun, man. Everything I do is fun. Now, here's a picture of one of my heroes, Albrecht Dürer, and this is an etching called "The Night, Death, and the Devil," and there's the devil. There's the knight in his armor, and there's no, that's death, and then this is the devil here.
Mariano, can you hear me?
Yes.
There is an article in the news today because a boy found like 10, 13 years ago an original of this.
Really?
Yeah. Give
Wow.
me your email. I could send it to you or tell you where to get it, but I just read it this afternoon.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I wonder if he'd sell it to me. Probably not.
He sold it to somebody.
Yeah.
And it sold. Well, I'll have to find where that was.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just today. That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
I'll find that.
Okay. Well, you can email me at
Wait, let me write it down just a minute.
Okay.
Hold on. Right here. Okay, what's your email?
It's Mariano
Uh-huh.
at gci.net.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, it's easy. At any rate, I'd always been fascinated with this, and I did took a couple of different approaches, but the first one was making this panoramic. I was driving home from the university one night, and it was winter, and it was snowing, and I thought I just decided to take a picture, And when I got it home, and a panoramic, when I got it home, I started thinking about the night, death, and the devil, and I thought, well, so here I am. I'm the knight. I'm inside my truck, and here's my face in the rearview mirror, right? And in my rearview mirror, there's death here. And of course, the rearview mirror says that, objects are closer than they appear, right? And then, so I put something that looks like the devil standing there, holding a light. And I thought, yeah, so that was my version, a panoramic version of the night, death, and the devil. And actually, I did a small version of it in my last show at IGCA, and somebody bought it. And but the original was about 3 feet high by 9 feet wide. And actually, I did sell that one at IGCA too. But I don't have the images. Let me close this down. But I also did, because I was always fascinated with this, I searched the net for images of the night, death, and the devil that were not so pixelated. They were as sharp as they could be, And I found one, and I took it into Photoshop and I sharpened up the lines and made them look more like, etched lines and, than pixels. And then I um, printed it on a transparent substrate in black and white. And then I used it to etch a copper plate. And so I actually made a copper plate. I had to try it 2 times, of The Night, Death, and the Devil, which then I inked up like a etching and made a couple of prints out of it.
Found it. Can you see this? Wait, no, I don't know if you can see this. Anyway, you can't.
It's too bright. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So, yeah, which brings me to printmaking. I use photography a lot, well, almost exclusively when I do prints anymore, So here's a selfie of me. Look at that phone, boy. It's a flip phone. That was a long time ago. And look at, I got hair on top of my head, and a nice big mustache. It's kind of gray, but still, I was a bit younger. So this is my picture, and I decided to make a woodcut out of this. So I got it into Photoshop and I reduced it to lines, basically. Let me close that. And then I printed the lines. I printed the shape here on a piece of paper. And then I glued the piece of paper to a piece of wood. And then I used this machine that I built and designed and built for my printmaking classes, and cut the plate out of MDF. And then I printed it. Just it's a relief plate like a woodcut, and there it is. And so once again, let me emphasize that, it starts with photography. It starts with photography, and then it goes on to, many or some other directions. This one was some graffiti on the bridge. It's not there anymore, but the bridge over the Toke River. And so I photographed the graffiti, and then I started playing around on Photoshop to basically make it look sort of like this. And then on Photoshop, then I separated it into cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And then on the transparencies, I put them on a silk screen, silk screen. Then I made these prints. Another one I did was Oppenheimer. Now this is about 3 years before the Oppenheimer film came out, So I saw a picture, of Oppenheimer, and I was always, curious about this guy, I mean, he had more brains than every Republican in this country and 2/3 of the Democrats, But yet he helped to build this weapon that vaporized men, women, and children, And I just wondered what kind of a person does that sort of thing, but never mind. So what I did with this this negative is I separated it into like 4 different layers of tonality, black, white, and 2 or 3 different middle grays. And with those separations, then I burned them onto a silkscreen and silkscreen color over it to get this print. And so, I mean, there's so many things possible you can do with photography if you start, kind of thinking about, just how to, especially now with the computer, in fact, I could say that at the root of my creativity is photography, and the next level up is computers. And then the next level above that is all different kinds of media, that I'm very familiar with. And um, so kind of that's the nature of my creativity. Anyway, so there's one, two, three, four. Yeah, there's 5 levels here. So 5 levels of gray, which then I translated into different colors and printed them in. And here it is. I've actually sold a few of these, and these were in some show outside as well, some print show. But now, speaking about computers and using computers for what I do, before Macintosh and concurrent with PCs, there was a computer called an Amiga, and that was the first computer that I ever used. And I sort of like the images that I could come up with, but there were no printers there that were very good or even affordable. So I decided just to photograph the screen on the Amiga computer, and the screen was very well balanced. I didn't have to do any kind of changes, so it worked out really well with the negatives. And so this was uh, just a negative off of the computer screen. And you can see the resolution is not that great, but hey, it's a computer, man. At the time, it seemed to work out pretty well. So I did a version of Mona Lisa, and I got a slide from the art department slide library of Mona Lisa, and I printed that tricolor again. But in the middle of it, I had this pattern that I generated on the Amiga computer, and kind of superimposed it with the Mona Lisa, and I call this one Mona Once More. Thank you. And I've done 3 other versions of it since then, every 5 or 6 years. But this one, I think, well, I know the Museum of the North owns one up in Fairbanks, um, and this was done from a slide on Cibachrome paper, glossy. I still have one, and it's still beautiful. Now this one, I just turned 50, and I got a show at APU, and I thought, damn, I'm 50 years old. I've never done any kind of work that's Alaskan,
You're how old?
I was 50 at the time.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant now.
No. I'm 73 now. Anyway, I had never done any Alaskan, and I'd never done anything to reflect on my Hispanic heritage, So I thought, what the hell? I'm going to do something like that. So I decided to make these Alaskan images, but I printed them on a tortilla, a tortilla that I bought at, Fred Meyer's. And it was a pretty weird ass show, I think people were just kind of confused and flummoxed by it, but oh well. If I can't confuse people or amaze them, then what good am I as an artist, I might as well go back to teaching. But anyway, so oh yeah, this one of the raven here, it's I broke up the tortilla to look like the raven had been, chewing on it. And here I am, pinned against a fake totem pole, It's called Fly Like an Eagle. Now this one here with all the puffins, they all say squawk, 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 squawk. But there's one puffin in the center that says El Squawko, like Spanish, El Squawko. And he's got a no sign on him, so it's like, it kind of reflects my experience, as an Alaskan, but we won't go into that too deeply. At any rate, that was kind of fun. Crazy, This was a demo for an illustration class that I was teaching. And I gave this class an assignment to illustrate a song, and for my demo, I decided to illustrate a song by Captain Beefheart. Have you ever heard of Captain Beefheart? Well, there was a song that he did called China Pig, and it starts out, I didn't want to kill my China pig, and so on and so forth. So I did a rough sketch, showed my students, this is kind of the idea that I have. And then I cleaned up the sketch some, and I used a photograph, to kind of copy the line work on it, and the handwork and that sort of thing. So, and again, it's like that Red Pears thing. It was a demo for for students. And I wanted to use a hand with a yellow rubber glove, because when I did this demo, this is when Abu Ghraib was going on, and our soldiers, had these prisoners, and they were all wearing these yellow gloves, and they made the prisoners do all kinds of awful, bad stuff. It's just, sickening. But so I bought some rubber gloves, and I photographed it so that I can, come up with a good drawing. And this was the drawing. Okay, that's going to work. And then I took a photograph of myself, so that I could, uh, paint it, digitally paint it. And I think I should have trimmed my nose hairs. Those are a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. It worked out. And then finally, after all that preliminary stuff, I finally did the painting, on some painting program. And I used kind of an oil painting / watercolor painting technique. And so this was it. And the title of it is I Whipped Out My Fork. You'll have to look up China Pig and listen to it so you can understand what it is. But I decided to keep the nose hairs in there, because as long as I'm being gross, why don't I just go all the way, right? But again, I mean, photography is at the root of all of this, even though the final piece is definitely not a photograph, right? It's that's what I do. Okay, go away. There we go. And I started experimenting with, different ways of getting photographic type images. So this is a self-portrait. And what I did is I mounted a lens on a scanner. And so there was a lens mounted on a scanner, and it hit a mirror, which reflected the images onto the platen of the scanner. And then I put a piece of tracing paper on the platen, and then I scanned it. I hit scan, and this is what I came up with. And I thought, no, that's got some potential, some possibilities. But of course, I didn't explore it after that. I just wanted to see if it could happen, and it did. So this is a scanned, a print from a scanner, a photographic print from a scanner. And about this time too, I started printing on metal, digital printing on metal for photographs. So these leaves here were leaves outside of the arts building in fall. They were on the ground, and I took pictures of them. And so I used them and printed those on some gold leaf on a piece of aluminum. I printed those. And then this was a scan of myself. I actually scanned myself on a scanner in the back here. And then I created this skull image on a piece of plexiglass, which I printed on the backside. So this is actually 1, 2, 3 different layers. And it doesn't look too bad here, but it's much better in real life. But again, it's all digital images, from photographic processes printed on aluminum. Now, this piece here, my wife had a potted ivy plant and it died for some reason, so she threw it out. And I went out and I found it. So I brought it back. I was going to photograph it. But before I could photograph it, my wife found it again and she threw it elsewhere. So I had to go find it again. Finally, I photographed the thing and I decided to. Now, at this time, I was making images with folded paper or folded aluminum. And if you saw my show at the museum in 2015, most of my images were huge and they were done in that technique. But I started doing it instead of on metal, on paper. And so that's what this is. I superimposed the dried, the dead ivy plant on on paper and folded it and put it together. And I was inspired by Karen Stoliker. I don't know if you folks remember her. She was at the Visual Arts Center many, many years ago. And I liked the way she did, fiber on sticks and that kind of stuff. So I was kind of sort of semi following that process. So this is what it looks like on the backside. Oh, wait a minute. I can't show it to you because it's on Photoshop. It's not going to come up. But at any rate, yeah. And so, I mean, it looks okay like this, but in real life, it's really cool because it has a very much a 3D effect. As you walk past it, the stems and the leaves move, and it's, pretty cool, in my humble opinion. This one, um, I scan and sometimes photograph pieces of metal or pieces of junk. And but this one is a scanned piece of metal. And when I scanned it, because the metal having the character that it is, it throws back the light from the illuminator and the scan, and it comes up with something that's just totally different. So I started playing around with this, and so I added a hummingbird, I added a ice fisherman, and then I just made a monster underneath the lake. I call this ice fishing on Jehovah's Lake, and I I sold quite a few of these. These for some reason resonated, but I liked on the metal. I liked these scratches, and there was thumbprints on it and all that. And I thought, yeah, yeah, all right, this looks like my kind of thing, and so I did it. Now I went to Seattle for 2 months for radiation therapy for this cancer thing that I had going on. And while I was there, I handed my cell phone to the techs who were, because I got radiation, pretty much every day for 2 months. And so I had them take pictures of me, while I was, going through the process. And after I got home, I took those pictures and then those photographs, and then I scanned them and started coming up with, I basically planned this painting here. So this is an oil painting on canvas from photographs. And on the outside here, I found a lot of images, medieval images of the dance of death, and every one of these is some kind of a little vignette of how death, goes, affects everybody, rich, poor, whatever. Except for this one. This is by an Italian painter named Mantegna, and it's Christ on a slab. And what always intrigued me about this Christ on a slab is the way the cloth kind of flows down around his stuff, his junk, and I thought, wow, that I didn't know Jesus Christ was that well hung, but oh well, whatever, he's my savior. So I was hoping that it didn't look like that when I was getting, my photographs, and no, it wasn't. But if it was, I would have changed it. At any rate, I call this one the dance deferred, referring to all the dances of death. Um, and again, I mean, it started off with photographs. Everything I do starts with photographs. Now, this is a crazy one. Um, this is 3 different layers. The back layer is a layer of aluminum that's digitally printed, and the skeleton body is digitally printed on that, and a gradation from dark green to white. And then at the very front is a piece of plexiglass, and on the rear end of the plexiglass, I printed these clouds, digitally printed clouds that I photographed. And then I cut a hole in it, and I used a skull that I that I 3D printed and then painted, and put some wires coming out of the top, you know, and I call it dead and disconnected. And I sold this sucker right away, you know. I think I should make some more because I thought it was really cool. But again, you know, you wouldn't think that if you looked at it live, you would wonder if, you know, what part photography played in it. But I know specifically, yeah, it was a very, it's what kind of holds everything together in this particular piece. This is something I call the Ark of No Covenant. And I had a little piece of metal. It was like 1 inches by 2.5 inches wide. And it had, you know, some stains on it and whatever. So I scanned it, and then I made it large, and I looked at it, and I saw these parts and pieces and images, and I emphasized them with Photoshop. Oh, let me mention at this point that one of my painter heroes was Max Ernst, and he lived, you know, around the time of World War II, and actually he emigrated. He got away from Germany and came to America. But what Max Ernst would do is he'd make some random patterns on a canvas, you know, with a rag or whatever. And then he'd look at these patterns, and then they would suggest something to him, you know, and whatever it suggested, he went forward with it and came up with a painting. Well, so that's what a lot of my paintings are kind of like that as well, you know. So same thing here, you know, I scanned this thing and it suggested, you know, what you see here, and I put it together, and I did add the little face in the helmet here in the egg shape, and as I said, I call it the Ark of No Covenant. Now, speaking of photography, I was out on the Seward Highway one day, and I saw some rocks, a rock face. So I took out my camera and I just took pictures of the rock face. I thought, this has got potential for something. I don't know what, but you know, like the Max Ernst thing, you know, if I look at it long enough, you know, it suggests something, you know. And so what I finally ended up doing with this is this piece here that I call the lake. And so you can see the rocks here and here, but then I did some shading and shaping and coloring and so on and so forth. And all the rocks in the center here, I applied a Photoshop filter to make it kind of look like a strange water, you know. And for some reason, it reminds me of Kluane Lake. I don't know if you've ever been to Kluane Lake. It's on the Alaska Highway. But yeah, so you know, again, you know, I start with you know, an image from a photograph, and then I look at it, see what it suggests, and go for it. Now, lastly, playing with you know, digital cameras, I was playing with, you know, what sorts of things I could do with it. This is a self-portrait, you know, and it's kind of an inverse scan, which I then kind of put together in Photoshop, and it's rather bizarre. It kind of looks like a Fernando Botero painting, but not really. And one of the things that I did is I then printed it on gridded paper. And then these little white areas are areas that I cut out with an X-Acto knife. Then once I cut them out, then I squeeze them together and glue them together, you know, on the backside with paper. And it gives me an image that's kind of three-dimensional. And let me show you what it looks like. So that's what it looks like. So when you pull the paper together, it kind of, well, the paper distorts, it's no longer flat. And it comes up, kind of a weird three-dimensional sort of suggestion. Also, I was interested in trompe-l'oeil, which is French for fool the eye. And it's how you're basically using three planes to create something that looks three-dimensional, but of course it's not, it's flat. So this is a shot of, first I'd make a stage with a grid, and the stage would be a left and right wall and the floor. And then after I photograph an image against the stage, then I open it up and straighten it out so that it looks, so the stage is, a grid, just like you see it here, but the image itself becomes distorted, as you see here. And then I cut out the floor, and then I fold it, and it becomes, well, trompe-l'oeil, three-dimensional. So this is one that I did in a solo show. I had the Kimura, I don't know when it was, a long, long time ago. This is a student. Her name was Ruby. She's still around, I think. So this is how I photographed it. I had her stand in the corner of the gallery, and I made a grid with string up in the wall. You can see that string, and it's held down with tape. So the grid, and against, left, right, and a floor. And all the grid is all very even. It's like 4x4 or something like that. So then I had her stand there, and I took this photograph. And after I did the photograph, I digitally removed all the strings. I removed the grid and moved it to give it, a proper shape for trompe-l'oeil. And this is what it looked like, flat. And you can see the kind of the distortion. And then when I folded it and put it back in the corner, it looked just like that. And it was really weird because people would tell me that it would kind of creep them out when they'd go by the Kimura Gallery at night, and they'd see Ruby standing in the corner, just contemplating God knows what. But yeah, so it's just, trompe-l'oeil. And again, it's just another use of photography, to come up with, something that's just, kind of away from photography. Let me show you one last thing. I retired last May, and I learned that, and I got emeritus status, and I learned that as an emeritus, I could take classes for free, not have to pay, the tuition. Still have to pay the lab fee, and then there's a student fee too. I don't know what it's for, but anyway. So I decided to take a ceramics class, which is something that I've never really done before. I've done everything else, but not ceramics. And so, so my first project, I decided to do some rubble with a little Gazan kid sitting in the rubble. I don't know about you, but I'm just a little bit perturbed at what Israel is doing to Gaza and all the children they've been murdering. But anyways, I thought I think I'm going to do some. I mean, I do political stuff all the time, right? So I thought I would do an image of a child sitting amidst rubble, and so I got a lot of pictures of kids, Gazan kids, and so I like this one. So this is a work in progress. And I just photographed it just before I came here today. And so there it is. It's pretty nasty looking, but it's clay. And I still have a little bit more work to do. I got to do some more work on the hair and kind of finish the face and do the hands. But But once again, even now when I'm working with clay, with hand-built ceramics, I'm still relying a lot on, photography. And so, again, as I mentioned before, photography is kind of at the root of everything that I do. But I sometimes try to work it so that you don't see the photograph, you just see the work itself. And I think it works, but I am not sure. I really I really don't get a lot of feedback on my work, but you know what? Screw it. I am what I am. I do what I do, and the hell with it. So thank you. If you have any questions, you feel free to ask.
Mariano, thank you. Wonderful lecture talk. Really interesting to see your work. I've seen it over the years and always admired it, and it was really fun. And Elliot Irwin, I was not familiar with, so thanks for that as well. I shall explore. I love those images.
Oh,
thanks.
Good. Yeah, check them out. Definitely.
Thank you.
All right, kids.
Thanks, Mariano. There's actually a great Elliot Irwin photo of his wife with their baby and a cat on the bed. Have you seen that one?
I think so. Yeah.
It's kind of well known. I love Elliot Irwin's humor and his wit. Yeah, that was great. I want to let other people ask questions if they need to, though. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
Can I just say thank you so much? I thought it was so fun. I was laughing so much. I was on mute. So you said you didn't get much feedback, but I was really enjoying and laughing. And the thing that I really appreciated was you shared so much of your process. So it really gave me thought on how I can bend photography a bit. So I really, really appreciated your talk.
Great.
And it was great seeing a whole body of work too over the years. It was just it made me think about my own continuity in my own exploration. So thank you.
Okay. Well, you can always contact me if you need any kind of, advice on some project that you may be working on.
Oh, thank you. I may take you up on that. Thank you so much.
I mean, I'm no longer being paid as a professor, but I'll do it for free.
Okay. Mariano, the last photograph of that girl, I know you're doing something with clay, but that photograph is very strong. You shouldn't just set that aside.
Well, I don't plan to, but we'll see.
I mean, it's the photograph itself is very, very powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's amazing all the directions that you go with your photography. It's
well, photography is something that's, I mean, it's the root of, I think, everybody's creativity. I mean, you don't think of anything unless you see something. You see it. And what's a camera but just a mechanical seeing device.
Yeah, I like that. One of the original names for photography was the pencil of nature. I think it was William Henry Fox Talbot who said that, who coined that term. But you're literally using it, or as you say, as a sketchbook or a sketching device.
Yeah.
So
and inspiration as well.
Any other questions from anybody? Oh, there's something in the chat. Michael Johnson, question. How do you know if something works if you aren't getting feedback?
The only feedback that I'm really, no, let me back up a little bit. I don't want to be an asshole. Um, if I like it, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And if other people like it, I'm happier. But, what's happiness? It's just a little bit goes a long way. But I do appreciate, feedback and people, making comments on what I do, positive comments and even negative comments, but I guess the problem is that I hate to say this, but I just don't do standard stuff. I just never have. Not my thing.
Do you have to follow your heart or trust yourself or trust your instincts while you're making a piece?
Pretty much I trust my instincts, and a lot of times, I have to do things over and over again to kind of figure out how it's done, like some of the early photography experiments that I did, as I mentioned, I had to, do many different printings with different changing the procedures, to see what I can get, to see what's going to work. But yeah, I'm kind of used to it by now.
So maybe experience and confidence allows you to kind of follow that thread through the dark.
Yeah, well, the confidence part, I'm always pretty sure that I'll make it work out somehow, And sometimes in the process of making it work out, it doesn't work out the way that I had thought, but some other way, some even better way, that's a surprise, and that's always good too.
Is it a process of discovery when you go to make a work?
Yeah, to a large extent, I have an idea of what is possible, right? And I start working towards that direction. And a lot of times it doesn't actually end up that way, but some other way that's even better, So I guess I place my hands, place my trust in the hands of God. God says, "Hey, do this, do this." Well, actually, no, not God, but could be Satan. Nah, maybe not Satan. I don't know. Somebody.
Some guiding force.
Some guiding force, yeah.
Oh,
Compelled. You're compelled.
That's exactly.
I have another chat comment. Michael Leo Doucette says, I appreciate your art journey, even when you're not certain of the direction. I've traveled a similar path over the last 40 years. Enjoy your art.
Excellent. We should talk sometime.
Well, maybe on that note, unless there's any other questions, and anybody? Okay, then thank you very much, Mariano. That was great. Very interesting.
Well, I enjoyed it. It was stressful as hell, but I got there. And once again, if you folks, you have some kind of a weird ass question about something that you're doing, you can definitely, you're welcome to confer with me. It's, mariano@gci.net, and we could talk.
You might regret this offer, Mariano.
Well, if I do, I'll change my email.
Thanks again.
Okay.
All right.
Good to see
Thank you.
everyone.
Right.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mariano. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for
Thank
hosting,
you.
Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.